himself. Let's send it over to the analysts. They don't want to deal with that game two. They want us to deal with game two. So, gentlemen, much in contrast as a beach ball makes its way down to the analyst desk to game one, this was so much more in control from SKT for the entirety of the game beyond that maybe 5 to 10 minute mark.
Yeah, that game was a shellacking. That was incredibly one-sided. But I just want to, Duke against Rox Tigers was down 16 CS at 10 minutes, was getting destroyed this game. And we kept talking about it. Rox was sending 3 members towards that top lane. This game looked like it was going to follow a similar trajectory, but the whole of Samsung Galaxy overreached, got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, and got picked off one at a time.
I mean, it started out great. So again, there was potential for Samsung Galaxy. We had ambition with the Kindred. It was kind of working out. At one point, we had Duke being pushed in the top lane. We had mastery over that lane, but then they weren't communicating well enough, top laner and jungler together, to set up a dive. And if you really don't punish a large CS lead with a dive and then leverage that advantage somewhere else on the map, then of course SKT will buy back.
Of course, and that's what we saw. Look at the pick and ban phase itself. Not a fan of Kindred here at all. I actually think it's a really bad pick in this situation. I know it's easy to say now after they lost, but yeah, I'm just flaming the pick now. Because Lee Sin is good against Kindred, in my opinion, especially after level 6. You can kick the Kindred out. You can 1v1 her very easily. Gnar, displacement, another good one. Jhin is super, super long range, also good against Kindred. Kindred is good against comps with like Hecarim that like dives the back line. And it made sense with the Cassiopeia. Like, you want to protect her. She sits there and fires away left and right, and you keep her alive. But it wasn't good against everything SKT had. And it really is the big problem for me. I wanted Samsung to be way more competitive in the pick and ban phase to make this series close. They're still banning Syndra, still banning Ashe. They're now picking Kindred when they don't have to. And that is really not doing themselves any favors.
Well, but what about the fact, though, Spawn, that the CS advantages were built in the top and mid lane? So we sit here and we're criticizing the champion select, but if the champion select is yielding early game advantages, it seems more like then it's a play issue and transitioning from early to late.
It's one of those things where SKT, you feel like you have to smash them so hard early game if you get an advantage, because otherwise they're going to come to you. So you start doing things like flashing on top of an AD carry when he supports there and yours isn't. Or you ulti way too late as Kuve and set up what is the biggest snowball, like reverse snowball I've seen in professional League of Legends in a very long time.
Well, first let's go ahead and take a look at Ambition's first blood and how SKT fired right back, brought to you by Acer.
And honestly, that ties into your point right there, Dash. Yeah, champions like yield some things, but this is also a misplay from Bengi himself. So SKT need to also make some misplays for them to fall behind, and that obviously Samsung Galaxy get ahead, but they never really use the leverage that well later on.
No, and again, when you play in competition that has very good early game, you are expected to get small advantages here and there. The problem for Samsung is then Faker can pull off plays like this. He clears the wave so they can't set up easy dive early, and then he makes an aggressive play when it was Samsung supposed to actually bait out a TP from SKT. And then he goes in surprise. And the cool thing about like the Ryze Jhin combo is Ryze can point and click instant W for 1 second. It's a 1 second snare. That's enough charge up time for the Jhin W to then fly and actually have another snare coming in. So it's a really cool pick comp from SKT, and Faker pulling off a play like that is why it's so hard to play against SKT.
I was about to say exactly that, where it's SKT, we talk about their heads-up play all the time. They had already lost that fight, but then they find a way to get a kill back and equalize. Now I want to return to your point about the top lane. Kuve's deaths here, because he did have that early advantage, but then we saw time and time again, death after death after death, some roams to the top lane, some dives, and all of that.
Yeah, and when you have a look at how this started, it's because he gets the stun and then he's late on the ulti. And this ulti not being available because he also has to burn flash in the run, in the chase that comes out of Duke is just so key.
Yeah, it just highlights that you can't make those mistakes. Earlier, there should have been a dive on the Gnar because that didn't happen. And combined with the fact that this was a really poor ultimate here from Kuve, leaving him outrated on the back end. Because if he has that ultimate, that's zoned for Duke not to chase. But because he got so low, it allowed SKT to do exactly what they're doing on the replay right now, which is dive once, dive twice, dive 3 times. And at that point, the Kennen is so far behind in the matchup that, as the casters pointed out in the game, he can no longer teleport anywhere without losing turrets. Therefore, it's so easy for SKT to play the map.
Yeah, they pull the map apart. And, you have to give further credit to SKT because we're talking about how Faker is a stay-at-home mid lane. He wants to be able to chip away the turret. This time, he just continually runs top lane. Like, those are instrumental ganks that completely shift the power of that Kennen pick.
It's once again the reaction from SKT. When they know a play is about to happen on one side of the map, they can move down and react to it and then counterattack it. And then once they get the advantage, they can play aggressive themselves and obviously make the right play. And I think, again, to go back to this whole like overall talk about picking for early game and playing very aggressive early, flashing forward to try and make the plays. If you are Samsung, game 1, you managed to drag it out to really late game, and you had a horrible mid game there. You lost every single tower. it snowballed against you very, very quickly, and you had to wave clear your way. And SKT, we questioned the way of finishing. I think for a game like this, if you're Samsung, you're not a good enough early game team to just try and go all in on the early game. I actually like scaling from them. I like patience and try and do what SKT is doing and then take late game team fight.
Yeah, so back on the blue side for game 3 here, backs against the wall, right? They got to run the table now in order to come away with the championship. For Samsung Galaxy, let's start in Champions League. How do they craft a victory here? Because looking at this, we look at that cannon, we look at the Cassiopeia, we look at aggressive lanes. Do they go the opposite direction?
I think that the biggest thing is we've seen 2 games where Ambition's actually been in a weaker matchup. I mean, they're not drafting well around what should be like arguably their one strong point left. So I think that I expect that to change and for them to first pick him in Olaf or something like that and try and run over the top. In saying that, after seeing those 2 victories, I mean, 1 close and 1 a crushing defeat, is it going to be enough?
At the same time, we've seen flashes of brilliance from Samsung Galaxy, and we've also had 2 kind of series-defining moments, one in each game, the double ulti from Faker around the Raptors, and then here maybe potentially a dive being set up onto Duke. You know, that could have put him down in a dumpster. You know, die, put the 50 CS lead on the cannon, and we would have an entirely different game. I think Samsung just need the extra step in some of these games. And they can play either comp, both early or late.
Sure.
But if you don't play good enough, you're going to lose regardless against a team like SKT because they are so consistent throughout the entirety of the game.
And you just see a willingness to pull the trigger on players from SKT that Samsung's not willing to do. I mean, maybe that's an experience issue. Maybe that's not them wanting to commit 100%. And then when they do want to commit 100%, I just think it's in the wrong situation.
It's also just a classic against SKT. We talked about it so often. The first game is somewhat competitive. You can maybe criticize SKT a little bit more. And then second game, it started okay. A big play's about to happen. It gets counterattacked by SKT, and then mentally you just fall apart completely. Yeah. And game 3 then tend to be a really one-sided game, and that's where we get these very easy 3-0s for SKT. If the first game goes the other way, maybe you get a more competitive series. In this case here, SKT are looking fantastic in both pick and ban phase, and especially here in game 2, and they look to just close it out.
1 game away from another 3-0 for SKT. Don't go anywhere because match point between SKT and Samsung Galaxy is coming up next.
Tidal Wave captures both of Samsung Galaxy's bottom lane. Ambition with the Lamstress fight. It's first blood. Ace in the hole's available for Ruler. Not going to use it just yet. The exhaust, the flash, the heal. Ruler's face palming forward, looking for more. More JJ. Kicked against the wall, locked against the wall. Duke gnaws crown. Petrifying gaze, not going to be enough. And SKT are 2-0 in the finals.